Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. A day after tomorrow, 27th of November, 6 by-elections are going to be held in this country. And this is a litmus test to the integrity of contested IEBC that was formed after sweat of the Kenyan people. And the country is putting their eye. The focus shifts from the politicians to the referee. The teams are ready. Ladies and gentlemen, take a minute and subscribe to our channel. Click the notification bell and like our videos. This is the very last video that I'm doing. The next video I'm going to do in one of the areas I will be. These by-elections going on, I'll be in one area where these by-elections are going to be held. And of course, tomorrow, I'll be giving you a live feed from one of the areas where the by-elections are going to be held. It is imperative on the Electoral and Boundaries, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to make sure that they give Kenyans free, fair, credible, and verifiable by-elections, because it will be so bad, it will be a red card on their side if the country carries a doubt, a credibility card on them as the country heads towards the general election. You look at the things that happened in Tanzania, and I agree with what Moses Kuria is telling the president, that we cannot go Tanzania way. Kenyans are not Tanzania.
Nataka kuambia serikali na sana hapa nimwambie Rais William Ruto directly. The international community is watching. How we conduct these elections is of interest to the international community. Sasa mnafikiria sababu Suluhu amefanya vile amefanya, atatuweza kwenda hiyo ya Tanzania? Jamani, Wakenya si wa Tanzania. Wakenya si wa Tanzania. Msijaribu hapa. It will not be usual. It will not be business as usual in Kenya if you try those monkey games in Kenya.
And Kenyans cannot take anymore another stolen election. And the people that steal elections is the electoral body, aided or rather supported by the favorable candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying the focus is on the IEBC because we've seen some flaws. The country is still wondering. This is the newspaper I'm carrying here. The Standard is having this partisan IEBC. They're already marked. And this is the story. The reconstitution of the IEBC was meant to redeem an electoral agency long tainted by state interference and timid leadership. But days before by-elections, seen as a dress rehearsal for the 2027 general election, the commission is already struggling to shake off doubts that dogged its formation. It cleared a UDA candidate despite EACC advice. Some of the officials have been accused of bias. Opposition is warning of state-sponsored violence and poll manipulation. Can Chairperson Eketon calm the swelling storm? Sorry. There are some red flags that the country cannot fail, the country cannot afford to take comfort on. I still don't understand how a candidate was implicated in a 600 million failed oil manufacture, oxygen manufacture plant in Kenyatta Hospital is the candidate for the ruling coalition. And the 600 million project was supposed to help the Kenyan people to get oxygen in one of the largest referral hospitals in the country, Kenyatta Hospital. Now that candidate, the UDA candidate in Mbeere North, was cleared by the IEBC against an advice from EACC that the said candidate was facing prosecution. because of the biomarks. The country cannot seem to understand. And that is why we are raising a very critical question at this point. The moment we stop, I say, the moment we stop talking about electoral reforms, that is where we lose the country. And we continue to sympathize with that family. We are worried. I listened to Gladys Boss-Sholay giving the IEBC a clean bill.
On the issue of rigging, I think when people talk about rigging being possible in our elections, they probably don't understand our election system. Because, first of all, the kit that is used in the election is geo-mapped, which means I cannot take that kit and use it in another polling station. I can only use it in that particular polling station. Number two, a person has to arrive at the polling station and put their fingerprint. There is no other way of identifying people. Rigging used to happen when people were being identified just with their ID card number. That was all, or with an identity card. So you could bring an identity card of a dead person. You could go to the polling station 5 times with different identity cards and still vote. Today, the reason why Kenya, after the Kriegler Commission, and I was part of that process when we changed the electoral system, we said, you have to come, the reason why we did the fingerprint and the biometric facial features identification. So if you don't have fingers, we still have your pupil of your eye. We still have your facial features to use that as an identification. It has to be confirmed by all the agents when that is done, and it has to be noted in the book. So actually, Kenya has the most safe electoral system. I know I had people talking about saying that, we are going to be doing our own tallying. The thing is, they said that they'll allow Kenyans to tally with them. But remember, we have a QR code on the result form. We have a QR code on the ballot papers. So the moment you finish counting, you fill the result form, all the agents have signed on it, you have announced it verbally, you then scan the QR code, it goes to a public porthole long before it goes to bombers.
That is the presidential election. For parliamentary, they're different.
No. All results are sent. All results are sent to the portal. And therefore, you saw that in the last elections, the whole world had tallied. By the time we were announcing at bombers, the results had been tallied. Because every result form is scanned and sent to the QR code. Except, of course, by that time, people are more concerned with the presidential election. But all results are on the portal. So the results are available for the public. So what the public should just be asking is, let us make sure that that portal is functional and it's working and we are able to do it.
Okay.
And when you see people like Gladys Boss-Sholay clearing the glaring questions on IEBC, it leaves little to admire. Because in the last general election, they are the people that camped at the National Tallying Center. And any rigging claim that came through did not leave their names not mentioned, that vastly mentioned in some of those. So when you see the president's handlers, they're now back in the mainstream panel interviews, they're writing articles in the local dailies, they're now attending to radio interviews, trying to tell the country the way the electoral body is fine and opposition is just crying. It is already a red flag that someone that is interested in free and fair election cannot fail to mention. Secondly, I'm yet to hear IEBC putting a comment on electoral violence. Now, I think they conducted themselves nicely when 2 people were killed in Kasipul on a political rally. They summoned the 2 candidates, Boyd Were and Philip Aroko. They were summoned, they were even fined and warned of their consequences because of what happened, electoral violence. But I'm yet to understand IEBC explained to the country why Rigathi-Gachagua on Monday was blocked by the police from attending a political rally in Narok town while the campaigns had not been closed. Did IEBC give an advisory that there was an opposing candidate who was supposed to campaign there, because the IEBC is supposed to give a calendar. It's supposed to, when the candidates want to campaign place X, they have to tell IEBC so that IEBC reorganizes, say, now, if you're going to this location, then the candidate has to go to another location to avoid the coalition. That is something they do. There is no communication to that effect. There is no communication on the fact that recently in Mbeere North, just 3 days before Rigathi-Gachagua went to Mbeere North, there were some young people that recorded themselves on camera. They were warning Rigathi-Gachagua against going to Mbeere. Yes. They were warning Rigathi-Gachagua against going to Mbeere to campaign for the Democratic Party candidate. I saw Moses Kura raising some questions about that. There have been electoral violence. There have been a bit of violence creeping in at this point. And as an electoral body, one of the key factors, facilitators of a democracy, is peaceful elections. And if there is no peace, even those by-elections cannot happen successfully. I'm yet to hear their voice on some of these occurrences. There is little to admire from how so far they've conducted themselves. Still in Mbeere, PS Alex Washira, PS for Energy today, was captured campaigning in Mbeere North a day after the by-elections were done. Look at that. So you actually wonder, what is this? What exactly is happening? There have been violence against Natembeya in Western. The commission is quiet. We are going for the commission. We are actually asking the commission these questions because, yes, the security agencies in the country, it is their responsibility to ensure peace. But again, the custodian of our election is the electoral body. But what is this that Musalia Mudavadi is doing? What is that?
Consideration for the appointment as trade attaché in Pretoria, South Africa. Pursuant to this communication, the ministry has proposed the appointment of Mr. Ryan Njendi Malulu to the position of trade attaché at the Kenyan Embassy in Pretoria, Republic of South Africa.
Sasa sie alisomea mambo ya finance, akasomea mambo ya banking, kazi yake ni mambo ya uchumi na biashara. Sasa yeye ndio ataenda kutushikia mambo ya biashara kule South Africa. Yeye ndio atatuletea businesses kutoka South Africa zikuje hapa Kenya. Na Wakenya ambao wanataka kufanya biashara South Africa wapitie kwake kujua mambo ya South Africa biashara iko namna gani.
Yani, until you look at how things are very desperate. They're very desperate that mpaka mtu anapewa job inasoma kwa WhatsApp. Someone has been given a job. That is the son of Malulu Njendi. The son of Malulu Njendi, Ryan, was also vying in that election. But they subdued, they really told him to keep off. So look at a senior politician like Musalia Mudavadi using that as a political inducement to try to sway the masses. We have even seen relief food donated in Malava that are supposed to head to other areas, donated in Malava simply to bribe the voters. Yes, they can't stop some of those things. But I think we need to hear their voice, probably to show that they are concerned. It will be right to say probably they are toothless. Electoral malpractice. Rigathi-Gachagua is already raising serious questions on the deputy chair of the electoral body meddling with the campaigns in Magarini. That's where I will be anyway.
Na anijibu, I address that matter. Because if we meddle with these by-elections, IEBC will lose credibility ya kwamba wananchi wanaweza amini hao kusimamia uchaguzi mkuu. Kwa sisi tunataka tuone, so far the returning officer in Narok has been very firm. The one in Purko has been very firm. The one in Bere has been very firm. Yule wa Magarini amekuwa firm, but there is a lot of intimidation from the vice chair of the IEBC. Anaenda kuintimidate election officials in Magarini. So hiyo maneno tutazungumza juu yake, and we'll be writing to the chairman with the facts and we'll demand action. And that vice chairman needs to step down from the commission. If she is only 4 months old, ameanza kuchukua pesa kwa wanasiasa to meddle with the elections, hata hajamaliza half a year in office. She is all over collecting money kwa mahoteli. Amelala kwa hoteli fulani hapo siku mbili akitafuta pesa kwa wanasiasa, anapeana list of presiding officers. If that's the way we are going to run this commission, it will go nowhere. And we are going to raise those issues with the chairman tomorrow. So mimi naomba the IEBC, the commissioners, please, for you to gain the confidence of the people of Kenya. Wakenya waamini ya kwamba mnaweza aminiwa kusimamia uchaguzi mkuu wa 2027 ambao utakuwa ni uchaguzi mkali wa kufukuza rais ambaye yako kwa kiti. It will be a very hot election and it will be very emotive. And Kenyans will be tense. There will be a lot of tension. And the only way to deal with the outcome of that election is if Kenyans are persuaded that the IEBC will conduct a free and fair nomination. That's the only way.
My last question for tonight. Kuna watu wanaangalia jinsi kampeni zinaendeshwa na pengine imekuwa ni kama jambo la kawaida kwa taifa la Kenya kwamba upinzani na serikali kuna mavurugano. Jana tumeona kule katika kaunti ama wakati gavana anatembea alikuwa anafanya kampeni yake, serikali inaweza ama seme na watu wametokea pale.
Sisi serikali ndio Wetangula amepanga fujo. Wetangula ni mtu ya fujo hapo Kabuchai. The last time tulikuwa hapo Kabuchai, alipanga goons wakapiga magari yetu, wakapiga sisi mpaka risasi. Wetangula ni mtu ya fujo tangu zamani na ndio amepanga kupiga.
Yes. And I've seen the ODM, the UDA party has issued another statement discrediting Rigathi-Gachagua's movement. What Rigathi-Gachagua is saying. I've seen that statement. I've seen a statement from the state. I've even seen the young man, Kasmuel Makoure, has also been dispatched to respond to Rigathi-Gachagua on that matter. But this is not just a DCP outcry. Even in ODM, Odour there yesterday was complaining about election meddling.
In remembrance of Baba and Charles Ngondowere, we are going to vote for Boyd. I already know that the deputy returning officer for Kasipul is in bed with our opponents. That deputy returning officer, they had a meeting with Magwanga and Oteti. And they have been meeting, I've been following them very closely. I may not say that you leave Homa Bay now, but don't handle this election in any way other than going by the will of the people of Kasipul during the election day. Benda Winjoni, you are preparing presiding officers list. You are doing a list of presiding officers who are people on the other side. We are auditing that list. We are going to tell you who is to be removed. And when we tell you anybody to be removed, that person must be removed before election day, because we want transparent, free and fair elections. Jodala wa uye. Ere jomo uye ni wadhigo chane bawati katane. Asai magwedo ji ogwedu. Wabiro bedo kodu.
Ay! Meet kosok meet! Wadhi mbele kosoke kwa de. Ere jomo Raila Amolo Odinga. Ere jomane tho mar Raila Amolo Odinga litnegi.
Ruto nyowachona ni atandi mela neno ka wiler. Adwa puonji kaka kwalo kura mondo ibed president. Akenyo ti winjo gino. Jothuwa utie. Omiyo adwaro ni mondo ungen sani gima tich mitiyo en go ombulu tidok to jaluo ilando president. Omiyo 2027 onge jaluo madhi chung president. Watewa duto kendo adwaro winji mama ber. Ing'e ni locho kinyaka oko ionge ombulu. Jothurwa mang'eny kae onge ombulu. To gidwaro mondo wakaw loch. Yudhe mang'eny man kae adwaro mondo youth leaders mag ODM wuok mondo ukony ji okaw ombulu. Adwaro mondo ji okaw ombulu mondo wang'e ni koserier ni Ruto dhi kwano to jo ugunjo miye kuradi. Jo Alego Usongo miye kuradi. Jo Ugenyo miye kuradi. To kura ne makoseriwo. To wadhano kora medu ministers adek kata ang'wen.
In Kasipul. Okay? So that is why I'm saying that as much as we might not be comfortable with how things are done, but we must get it right. And it is upon the IEBC to ensure that the country has free and fair election. Someone was telling me the deputy president, former deputy president, the current deputy president, Kithure Kindiki, has been mobilizing huge rallies in Mbeere North to run perception politics. And this is to mean even if that election is rigged, people will judge based on the crowds and feel, you know what? The crowds means people with Rigathi, people with Kindiki. In real sense, these are people who are given money. These are people who are mobilized along that line. These are people who are taken there simply because there is something to be given to them. Someone is even saying, some are even mobilized. Even children, school children mobilized just to fill the stadium so that Yonekana kuna watu. And he has run a very big perceptional politics on that. You have to give it to the opposition. They've tried. I think running against the state as a politician, I have quite a number of friends at this channel who are aspirants who say that when you hear that there is a politician being supported by the state, even if you are popular, you are tempted to withdraw from that race. Because politics is not about the persuasion of the people. The persuasion of the people you can get right. Even if it is manipulation, you can manipulate people in your favor, right. But the state machinery is too heavy, is too intimidating and threatening and unpredictable that you can't fight against. It's sometimes very difficult. And someone was just saying that, look at the by-election in Malava. None other than President's PA was camping there. None other than the President's PA. And the President is so keen on these by-elections. But at the end of the day, I'll give my verdict on what I think. This is why IEBC must conduct free and fair election. The system is under threat and they're not willing to go down. Look at what is happening in Magarini. Mohamed Jichopevu went there to campaign against the ODM candidate and was neutralizing Hassan Joho in Magarini. Yesterday, Mohamed Jichopevu was there with Kalonzo Musyoka. What does it mean? Jichopevu wants to vie for Mombasa governor through either DCP or Wiper Party. Now, that his candidature is going to be a very big infrastructure for the opposition to snatch some votes from Mombasa. And the system understands this kind of threats. They're stopping at nothing to make sure that this thing is done. The IEBC must be very careful. The state oligarchs are framing the by-election as a lifeline for the two-term. This by-election has is a cuboid with two ends. On one end is an opportunity for the electoral body to show the country, to regain their confidence, to regain their trust as we head to 2027 general election. It is an opportunity to tell the country that we are not partisan. It doesn't matter who it is. Even if a candidate ameshindwa na 10 votes, don't manipulate. Let it be so. That is it. To show to show the country that is not another version of the late Chebukati. That is the first objective on that end. Then on this other side of the cuboid, this other end of the cuboid, the by-elections is an opportunity for the country to see what do people think about the two political formations. Yes, like us, I want to know, irrespective of who is winning Mbere or who wins in Mbere, Kasipul, Magarini, Malava, I want to know how many votes. Yes, I'm looking at Malava. How many votes will the DAPK candidate get against the UDA candidate? In Mbere, what is the percentage of votes that voting for UDA against the Karish? In Magarini, how about Harrison Kombe and Stanley Kenga? We want to make that because that is going to give us projections. Some of these areas, like for example Magarini, is predominantly an ODM zone. It is the first time in Magarini, that it is first by-election ODM is doing in Magarini, Kasipul and Ugenya in absence of Raila Odinga. So the people that led those campaigns are Kina, Wanga, and Oburu, and the other party leaders. So we want to know how many people will still, what is the percentage of the people still will cling within the ODM party, the level of influence without Raila. Because that is going to make the country make good projections in terms of what's coming ahead. Now that is why we don't expect monkey business. We don't expect people to play games. There is a very big stake in that election. So that is the first reason why I feel that yes, the state influence is there, but we want to see what it comes to say. Thirdly, the by-elections provide an opportunity for the electoral body to run some trials. Yes. How are they going to conduct the elections? Electronic, manual, this and that. They're also going to test some of their personnels. There are some electoral personnels that probably performed poorly in the last general election, and it sets the gear. Immediately we are done with this by-election from 27th. The next day, probably we head to the Christmas. In January 2026, full gear. We are preparing for the 2027 general elections. We are preparing for the 2027 general election. So it is not something that you would look at clearly. I think the IEBC should not be trapped into a political cage of saying, don't shame the president. No. Kenya doesn't start and end with the president. Even after Ruto finishes his term, the country is still going to be there. The country is still going to be there. Lastly, there is something from the bold desk I want to see. The message And especially these are the message for the government. I've heard Musalia Mudavadi say it, I've heard Kithure Kindiki saying it, and others saying, they are saying, vote for a government, an MP that has proximity to the president to bring development to the people. We have seen instances like in Bere and Malava, where state officials pitched there to launch some non-funded projects to create impression that if you elect this leader who is close to President Ruto, you're going to get development. Now, the catch for the state is vote for us and we bring development. Opposition on the other end has tried to ride on the past flaws of the Kenya Kwanza regime, questioning the affordable housing, questioning the health, questioning the human rights violations, of course, of the Gen Z killings that have been here for some time. All this, so we would want to see, and I'm paying attention to, this message was very loud in Bere and Malava. I'm paying attention to, do people buy the message of pigia mtu wa rais so that related development? This is something that will be very keen. Personally, I'm going to be very keen to find out how the country takes that message. That is why I want to say this, that rigging is part of electoral cycle. And their system oligarchs who cannot take defeat, because to them, it's an embarrassment. In this by-election, so many, the stakes are high, violence has been meted. We do not want to see that on the electoral day. On Thursday, we don't want to see that happening. We want a situation where, and I don't agree with what Rigathi-Gachagua was saying, that vote after voting remain within. No. Just have your agents. Have your agents. And by the way, another thing we want to also look at, the level of preparedness of the political parties for the elections. For example, DCP is the new kid on block. They have a candidate in Magarini. I want to see how they are going to protect their votes in Magarini. Tactically, I saw a tactical move where the person who was campaigning for the DCP candidate in Magarini was actually Kalonzo Musyoka. I feel they picked that because they realized that in Kilifi, there is a big population of the Kamba staying there. And of course, Kalonzo was being supported by some other Wiper MPs and some DCP leaders. So that was a tactical move so that Rigathi settles in, probably camps in Bere. That was a very good tactical move. But then, we also want to see, are they going to have agents? Are those agents going to identify with the party and not going to be bought? Remember, Raila suffered those very such fate, where you have agents, and the date of the general election, all your agents have been bought by your competitor. I think something needs to be done. We are paying attention for that election. And what we are asking the IEBC, just give us free and fair election. Just that. We are not, the country is not asking anything more than that. Just that. You are good to go. Thank you.